Let's go and get started. It's 9:06 now. My name is Mark Montoya. I am the Chief Data Officer for the Government Blockchain Association. And then real quick, I don't want it to have a big background on me, but I've been in the data strategy and data management space for over 20 years now for a U.S. federal financial regulator. But I'd like to introduce our panel. We have a great panel today, and you can see them all, I guess, on your screen now. But I'd like to introduce Shiv Agrawal. He's GBA's Identity Management Working Group Leader, and he's the CEO of MyEarthID. Shiv is a technology entrepreneur and has an in-depth knowledge of blockchain and digital ledger technologies. On the website, you can see their full bio. I sort of made it smaller for this presentation, this webinar. And the next person is Dr. Professor Jörg Molt. He's GBA's German chapter lead. He's author, president of Satoshi School, ethical hacker, international conference speaker, philanthropist, and consultant. And the next individual is the distinguished Ksenia Sipek. She's a director head of tax risk analytics for the Ministry of Finance in Croatia, Tax Administration. She's an international tax expert and lecturer at the University of Law, Zagreb, and research digitalization and blockchain technology related to taxes and the tax administration. The next person is David Anton. He's the managing director of Morpheus Analytics. Morpheus focuses on research and business intelligence services within the cryptocurrency sector. Mr. Anton is a project manager and professional with a broad range of experience across wealth management, institutional banking, fund management, and insurance. The next gentleman is Sachin Meyer. Mr. Meyer is the founder and president of Georgetown Cryptocurrency Club. He is a lead technician. He's a lead technical and economic research for the club. He has presented and taught technology and economic concepts and has organized education, marketing, and social media outreach regarding fintech and cryptocurrency. So as you can see, this panel is very distinguished, and I'm personally really excited about the topics that we're going to talk about today from privacy and anonymity. But first, before we get into that, I want to give some definitions around it. So let's first talk about privacy. So privacy, the definition, if you go to Wikipedia, it's the state or condition of being free from being observed or disturbed by other people. Okay, and Eric Hughes, the author of the Cypherpunk Manifesto, said privacy is needed in a digital world, and it is, and that privacy is the power to be selective, to selectively reveal oneself to the outside world. And then the second definition is anonymity, right? So what is anonymity? It's the person's identity is unknown or unreachable, untraceable to the world. In this digital world, the blockchain ecosystem offers tools to make these transactions that we have anonymous. So with that said, we are here today to discuss privacy and anonymity. We can talk about it in the terms of the blockchain ecosystem. So you have privacy of identity, right? And then you can say identity and anonymity go together also. You also have privacy of the actual transaction on the blockchain space. And then finally, you have the privacy of the state of the blockchain, right? So, and there's various privacy solutions on the blockchain. There's second layer protocols, mixed base protocols and approaches, zero knowledge proofs and all that. So with that said, with that big introduction, I'm gonna ask the audience or the panel a set of questions, and you guys can just comment. And if anybody has a question for the audience, just raise your hand, and I don't know if everybody's on mute or off mute, but unmute yourself and we can start asking questions. So the first question for the panel, is there a difference between privacy and anonymity? And I can go with Ksenia first. You want to go first? Is there a difference between privacy and anonymity?
Yes, as you said, Mark, before, this is quite big difference. One is to protect my privacy and any other persons. So who is handling and who collect my data and what they're doing with my data is according to the law or not. So that's protecting to my privacy as an individual, not only in the text space, in the every space of our society. And there is many rules about protecting the privacy. But anonymity, as you said, this is not traceable. I don't exist in my any transaction, so no one can follow me. So this is a quite big difference, and we see today that in the crypto world, anonymity could lead to some very criminal space. We are talking about money laundering or tax evasion. So that's a big difference between two terms as a privacy and anonymity.
Oh, thank you. Jörg?
I would say there is a difference only in the definition who is the enemy. I need privacy if government should protect me by misusing and frauding my data from other people. Think in the privacy sector, I make a deal with someone, I do not want to know what it is. Think about economy spying or something like that. That's when we need privacy in companies, the way we need privacy in our own behaviors, that no one knows which is my bank account statement, for example, and do not get into this field. On the other hand, we have a lot of states out there who is the government, the enemy of the society. So we have a lot of political people arrested in the world. And in this case, they do not need privacy, they need anonymity to get a shelter from treatments. So it refers, in my opinion, who is in which situation.
Yeah, very good. That's good. Shiv, what about you?
Yeah, no, I think we have already established that there's a difference, right? But I think what we should also do is like we need to kind of talk about privacy and anonymity with respect to the action and the repercussion, right? So I think when we talk about privacy, it's about basically ensuring that you have provided the right information for the transaction that is happening. In the sense, like for example, we are doing this webinar, and then I think it's important for me to introduce myself to establish that credibility with respect to the information I'm going to provide here, right? So unless I establish the credibility, the information that I'm providing might not be reciprocated or accepted in the way I want it to be, right? So privacy is important with respect to the action that I'm trying to take or the use case that we are looking at, right? So in that sense, privacy is about that. How do I ensure that I've communicated enough information about myself for this specific task at hand, right? While basically protecting my other information. For example, for this interaction that we are having today, you don't need to know what's my nationality, what is my house address, how much I earn, so those kinds of things. So privacy is about that aspect. It's about divulging only the amount of information that is needed for a particular interaction. But when we talk about anonymity, I think it's more related to the repercussion, right? Because sometimes when if we take the example of whistleblowing, usually there's an action that happens, and then there's a repercussion associated with that, right? So if I'm whistleblowing about something, then there's a repercussion, and that is why I need to hide my identity, right? So this is privacy is more towards sharing very specific information which is very relevant for the interaction. Anonymity is more about hiding information completely, so that the actor is hidden, and so that the repercussions are kind of avoided.
Excellent. I like that. I like the point of what you made, that the use case for the privacy, which is very good. It's right. It depends on the use case. But it's interesting that you have, when you actually transact, like Venmo, you have the transaction information. They know they know the deposit, right? But when you go on Bitcoin blockchain, you have you understand the balance, right? So there's a little level of anonymity based on the use case, or privacy based on the use case. It's very good, very good. How about you, Sachin?
Yeah, definitely. I think I agree with Shiv. I view anonymity as the one end of the privacy spectrum, and depending on the use case, as Shiv said, you need to move along the privacy spectrum in order to, establish trust, build a reputation, and get the transaction completed. So I view anonymity as just the ultimate end of the privacy spectrum with the most privacy. And as Professor Jorg said, anonymity is probably most useful when your adversary is the government. So when you're being targeted by someone with immense power and the ability to actually put you in jail or persecute you. So I think that's a bit of my view.
Thank you. How about you, David?
Yeah, look, I think so. To some extent, echoing Ksenia's thoughts, although probably a bit different in some respects. I think, look, privacy is, and everyone else's privacy is incredibly important to ensure that you can choose what interactions are visible and in what contexts your counterparty can see your actions. Anonymity can, in some instances, allow some negative actions. However, also it's also necessary for some situations, as political whistleblowers, for example, need anonymity. If they don't have anonymity, they cannot bring to light things that have happened, which are very negative for society. But also with that, clearly, there can be some negative applications. I don't think you can have a black and white one or the other, and I think it's about getting the right balance, basically.
Very good, very good. Again, I don't know if is there any questions from the audience?
Can I say something? So I was listening my colleagues. So when I started with anonymity, this is really some extreme situation if we are looking from a political way or from the way that someone should hide your identity as a whistleblower or something like that. But this is not the rule. So this is exception situation. We have to respect this situation, and we have all around the laws who protect this anonymity. But if we are talking about anonymity in general, that is, as I said, a very big difference between anonymity and the privacy.
That's great.
Go
ahead.
I was going to say, to continue that discussion, I think privacy is something that it has to be preemptive. You can't wait until you need privacy to start claiming it. For example, when you're a whistleblower, if you have a job in which you have zero privacy, when you decide to become a whistleblower, it's too late to reclaim your privacy. So it's something that you need to build up and maintain before you actually need it. And for that reason, I think preemptive laws like KYC, AML preemptively hurt privacy so that you might not need it now, but if you ever needed it, it wouldn't be there, which is a dangerous situation because you don't see the downsides until it's too late.
Yes, I absolutely agree. So privacy is something that really exists and it's covered by the law. So if you are a whistleblower, of course, you have privacy as any other person. But of course, it will be a situation that you will not be secure. And after that privacy that you use, if someone will be against you, you will need, for example, anonymity. But for the privacy, that is for all people. So that is something that is covered by the law in many countries around the world. So I will not be so specific in this specific situation because I think that is covered. But people as a people always be something in the newspaper.
Mm-hmm. And Jorg?
I will diversificate it a little bit more. So when I talk about privacy, that is something I have been given by the right and accepting the rules of a common society. So every country has its own rules to shape per society and the way the society can act and move and do tradings and everything. So if I follow the rules of the society, they protect their own citizens. So this is something, a give and take of a government and their society in a respect. When we talk about anonymity, it is the thing, for example, there is one thing we can't choose in our life, and this is where we have born in. So when you open your eyes in Pakistani or in Iran, for example, and the circumstances of the political situation, like before we have done business with Iraq and Iran, and then the government is saying this is forbidden, and the countries doing some suppressions on the normal people, and they do their daily business to survive. They need a lot of anonymity to act in the way they do. For example, if it comes for the whole space, I do illegal mining activities in the country where it is forbidden, it could help to stabilize the whole situation for me and my family, even if they put me into jail.
Thank you, Jörg. David, did you have something?
Yeah, look, I think just really probably nothing too much more surrounding what Sachin had said. I mean, I think there's a lot of, I think when you consider the context of cryptocurrency, there's a lot of different concepts here, right? And there's anonymity and privacy of financial transactions versus anonymity and privacy of non-financial transactions. And I think there are things that need to be considered quite differently. I think from an anonymity perspective, you know, if people are conducting a business and are trying to hide it, that anonymity is detrimental to the society because the government's not collecting the tax they're due. If it's a non-financial transaction and it's to do with, you know, communicating something that the world needs to know, that can only be communicated anonymously. And if that individual doesn't have that, well, that's very, very difficult, right? So I think the context need to be considered in the definitions need to be considered in the context of the use case, right? And I think there's situations where anonymity is absolutely necessary for the benefit of society. There are situations where it should not be there for the benefit of society. And I think you can't just apply a blanket rule to everything, basically.
Yeah, that's what it's a great segue into the next question, right? Talking about cryptocurrency. So why has privacy and anonymity become such a big topic when you start talking about cryptocurrency? Is it easier to have privacy and anonymity with cryptocurrency?
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely because of the technical ability for anyone to have privacy or even anonymity on cryptocurrency, such as Bitcoin. I think when it first came out, there was a lot of misinformation about how anonymous it was, and some people considered it fully anonymous. And that kind of reputation has continued. So I think there are people who are worried that it's too anonymous and too private, and it's going to make a lot of illegal activity easier. And that might be true, but I think it's mostly about the technical ability for people to achieve anonymity. But in the real world, in the practical sense, the US dollar has, or other fiat currencies have incredible amounts of privacy and anonymity possible as well. You see that a lot with all the money laundering that goes on. So.
Thanks. Any other comments?
Mark, I think historically, if you look at this, right? So I think when we talk about the cryptocurrencies, when we start with Bitcoin, historically, I think it started as a gaming token, and that is where nobody was worried about who's owning, right? Basically Bitcoins in that sense. But now I think when we look at the mainstream cryptocurrency space, it's basically it's a currency, right? It holds financial value, and then basically it's used for financial transactions as right. And then I think with that context, I think we need to understand the biggest question is with respect to how are we using, if we are able to use bitcoins and other cryptocurrencies as financial vehicles, then the question is that what are we trying to achieve with respect to the anonymity that a lot of people are asking for, right? Because I think one thing, when we look at the entire ecosystem, I think with respect to government and with respect to public ecosystem, I think taxation is a very, very important aspect, right? Because that through taxes, the government is run and then the public ecosystem is maintained, right? And then until unless, so I think we have been questioning the validity of taxes that the government is levying on us. And that is where I think Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies became a vehicle where people thought that we can use them as investment vehicles and we don't need to necessarily pay taxes, right? But the question is, if we want cryptocurrencies to be the mainstream financial vehicles, it needs to participate in the ecosystem. Obviously, there are certain challenges with respect to the intention of the people in authorities. But then I think what we need to understand is, like, if it has to if cryptocurrency have to participate in as a proper currency vehicle, they need to kind of provide certain values across the board, right? And in that sense, I think we should look at privacy in terms of while doing this financial transaction using cryptocurrencies, what is the bare minimum information that is needed to make that transaction, so that the underlying concepts of taxation and other things are also able to work, right? Obviously, when we talk about anonymity, I think I think a lot of people adopted cryptocurrencies because they thought and that they were misled that it's about anonymity, where nobody knows who owns what, yeah. And then you can kind of move money from here and there and you can avoid taxes, right? And I think this is the biggest confusion that is out there we should be addressing.
I agree. I actually think there's, in probably the early days, definitely Bitcoin was associated a lot with anonymity, probably because of a lack of understanding of what the technology does. And I think, this is privacy, and this has been such a big topic because Bitcoin and blockchain doesn't natively necessarily deliver anonymity or privacy. If you know what somebody's Bitcoin wallet address is, you can see where all of their Bitcoin transactions go to. And it's not too difficult to trace between the opening of an exchange account and the movement to a Bitcoin wallet. Now, I think that's kind of the crux. I think that at some point people have thought, oh, it's anonymous, and have thought, oh yeah, because the government doesn't know what we're doing, we don't need to pay tax. Well, I think actually, if you look back on tax rulings, I mean, I've had a fair bit of a look at tax rulings of a number of different governments, and they go back quite a long way in many cases, like a lot earlier than the hype and boom of 2017. I know the Australian Tax Office, for example, had rulings going back to 2014 and earlier. So it's something they've been looking at for a long time, and I think it's unfortunate that people have thought it's anonymous, because this particular protocol isn't, unless you were one of the fortunate early adopters who were able to mine a lot of cryptocurrency, and but that's a different scenario.
Yeah. I think in my opinion, the whole discussion came out because the people do not really understand what Bitcoin is about. For example, I thought, sorry for that, David, but I can go with my Bitcoins anonymous in a second without you having any ability to trace me, because I use it in an offline chain of transactions by private key. So if we do not sync our private keys and we sell the private keys on the street without ever syncing the network, I can stay with my people in common sense forever in anonymity, and you can't trace any transaction. The problem I see in our economy is that we have done a big mistake. When I was advising Japan, for example, in financial transactions and how to tax Bitcoin transactions on the people, we come to the conclusion that someone at some point, someone is ordering a good. He would use his Bitcoins for paying a car, for something like that. And what the government of the Japanese has done and turned around the whole system is the owner of goods are the point where the taxes are collected, not the guy who paid for that. And that leads into the situation that we had before Bitcoin, only 23% of people paying taxes in the US. And after Bitcoin, we still stay the same because our tax collection system is on the wrong end.
Thanks, Jörg. That's great comment. I want to go back to, again, the idea of privacy and anonymity. So maybe because this Bitcoin and everything is they're considered programmable money, right? So you can build or develop a coin or a token that has privacy by default or anonymity by default. It's kind of like giving the choice back to the individual. It's like when, we're all part of an ecosystem somewhere, some kind of digital ecosystem based on your phone, right? You're either part of the Google ecosystem or the Android ecosystem or Apple ecosystem. Now it's Amazon or Netflix. You're all part of this big, huge digital ecosystem where they're mining our data. Facebook's a good example. And I don't know how many times a lot of people actually, when you go to update your phone, right, it says, hey, I don't know, does anybody go through the whole huge privacy announcement they had before you update your phone? I think a lot of people just click yes and then go on. But if you click no, you can't get the new OS, right? So, again, it goes back to taking our privacy back. So I do have a question. I know we have all these different questions, but how do you get your privacy back? Can we program our privacy or identity into a token and tie that to a wallet and somehow keep that privacy? We can actually control it and bring it back. We can have anonymous. We can be totally anonymous now, right? It's no longer Jörg or Mark. Now it's like I can be called Sachin, but I'm not going to steal your identity, Sachin. I can be called whatever. I can be called Oliver or whatever. But it's only I know I'm still Mark, but I have all these various aliases on the internet using the functionality of programmable money and a token. So the possibility, is it possible to have your identity tied to a token, and we can actually give it to Facebook and say, you can mine my data, but you're gonna have to pay me for it?
So Mark, I think that's a very important question. And I think we need to take a step back here, because I think what we need to understand is, like, as of today, we have a lot of different type of identities that have been issued to us by different organizations, governments, and other authorities, right? And then I think, as you mentioned, right, I think to participate in the digital ecosystem, we need to kind of carry those identities with us wherever we go, whatever transaction we do, whatever interaction we do, right? So the biggest question is, how do we first make them privacy oriented, right? I think that is for one of the challenges, and that is where decentralized identity and self-sovereign identities are coming to the ecosystem to solve this specific problem with respect to, first of all, providing privacy with respect to the identity that you already have, right? But then the second question that you have is with respect to the data or the token, right? Because I think whenever we start talking about data, the biggest problem we have is that our data, which we should be ideally owning, is owned by organizations like Facebook, Google, and they are actually monetizing it, right? And then I think it's a very huge cliche where we say that data is the new gold or the new oil. And then since we are the owners, we should be able to kind of monetize that as well. And this is basically the key aspect which I think the tokens and the cryptocurrency should be looking at to solve, right? In the sense that, yes, my data is there. Somebody is doing some business transaction with that data, and then some monetary value is being driven. The question is, how do I get a piece of that particular cake, right? And now I think, and that is the question with respect to how can we bake that privacy within the token or within the ecosystem. And I think in that sense, I think not many cryptocurrencies or not many tokens has kind of thought about that aspect, because if you think about this, the existing cryptocurrencies, for them to be privacy oriented, we are actually putting the onus on the wallets and the exchanges. with respect to understanding, taking care of the privacy and the anonymity aspects. As of today, I think there would be very few tokens who can say that, okay, we have already baked that in. And then I think once somebody is mining that information, the respective people or the respective owners would automatically get the benefit. I think this is where we stand as of today.
I think it is very easy to create. So this is not a technological problem to solve this problem. So when we think about that, since the 1980s in the beginning, we know about so-called set marks. These are a technology which is called zero knowledge and common sense. What does zero knowledge mean? I create a smart contract, which is depending on an identifier network, which relies to a document which it was created, for example, with my birth documents. It has a fingerprint of mine, an iris scan of mine, and this document is related to a server network in a decentralized way. That every time someone asking me if I'm Jörg Moll, then I have the right to access these data, or I have the right to transact some data or give away some healthcare data for the doctor. I have to give the right to make an approval over the zero knowledge network. That means I give him a token-based number, which is given him access for, I would say, 1 minute to type that number into his system. This system is connecting to the smart contract. The smart contract is rerouting to the document, which has created and is updated when I use the doctor and everything. And this gives an identity proof and it's saying, okay, now you answer me a question that only you can know, which we have placed in that area. So what happens is we are free of our identity. We do not have to show everyone our ID documents. No one has to know where we're living. And the system is proving that I'm the guy who is, for a study, for example, 40 years old, non-smoker, or whatever you want to know.
You know, I think you've hit the nail on the head exactly in terms of that's the ideal state of this technology, to be able to do that, to be able to choose to disclose your information for a particular business purpose or health or whatever, for whatever purpose, and it just be used for that purpose. You know where it's gone, you know where the information's gone, and you have control over it. That there's some time to go in order to build out the infrastructure to achieve that. And I think, the part of what tonight's conversation hits on is the fact that there's these two conflicting purposes of the individual who, wants to have control of their data, wants to be able to go to the doctor. They're the only person who knows that they got a script for, whatever. And then there's, certain governments, perhaps not every government, but many governments who want to know everything. They don't want people to have that privacy, and they want to know everything. And I think those two discussions are colliding right now. And I certainly really hope it ends on the side of having that, the kind of solution that Jörg was talking about there, that I think would be ideal.
I also think the professor brought up a great point that this isn't as much a technical problem as a social problem or an economic problem, where will you convince companies to buy data when they can just mine it freely? I mean, right now, Facebook doesn't pay you for your data. So convincing them to start paying you for your data is probably the bigger problem. Not only that, but convincing a lot of customers that they need to start owning and selling their data is also difficult, because you're going to have to build a new network and steal Facebook and Google and Amazon's social graphs and network effects. So I think that you would have to convince a large portion of users that their privacy is worth giving up the convenience of Facebook, Amazon, Google, etc. Otherwise, corporations will never have an incentive to buy users' data when they can just freely mine the users who don't care about their privacy. So I'm not sure it's a technical problem. I can't speak to the technical possibility, but I think that the bigger barrier is the social and economic impacts.
Sachin, I think in that sense, this is where the concept of self-sovereign identity comes in, right? Because obviously, I think as of today, because the data is freely available, and even we are part of the problem because we have kind of freely shared that information with the organization like Facebook and Google to get free services. Nothing is free, right, in that sense. But obviously, I think this is where organizations like us, we are pushing towards solutions like self-sovereign identity, and even as Professor Oaks said, that zero knowledge proof. So this is about that you, first of all, you need to take the control back with respect to your information, and then in a very privacy oriented way, you share what is only needed. But in addition to that, you're also ensuring that if that results into monetization, then you also kind of share a piece of the pie, right? For example, at Earth ID, we are doing that, right? It's a self-sovereign identity platform where you create your identity, you create your wallet, and then through that wallet, you are ensuring that you are only sharing the bare minimum information needed for a particular transaction or particular use case. And then if that transaction results into revenue, then you get a certain percentage of that back into your wallet, right? And this is where I think the blockchain technology enables the microtransactions, which basically, that is why I think one of the key purposes of having cryptocurrencies is also that we should be able to do microtransactions, right? So in that sense, we have already built the technology to support certain these use cases, but as you said, right, it's about now the people have to come and basically drive the adoption so that we can push this concept further and then take away the control from the large enterprises and give it back to the people.
I think in many cases, enterprises are realizing that people want privacy, and they're already starting to think about this problem and think about, how it could be implemented. They haven't worked out that blockchain's the solution yet. For example, there's banks who are saying, look, we know you've got your privacy. Would you like to open up an API for your data to be shared with something else? But it's your choice to do that. At the moment, that's a private protocol developed by a bank that is not standardized. And I think the opportunity here is there's potential standardization, and there's solutions that can be rolled out that, yes, it's not just about, I think, user adoption. I think institutional adoption of this is going to come first, where institutions realise, well, there's a benefit to them and it's easier for them to integrate with other companies using this technology. But I think I think where we're at right now, we're just really laying the track work in order for it to happen, basically.
That's the main problem.
If I may say so.
Go ahead, Kasid.
If I may say something, I will go step back. I'm very carefully listening what Professor Mold said. And in one moment, we are talking here about taxation. So if we look at the cryptocurrencies right now, anonymity always have been some kind of advantage of this cryptocurrency. But actually, they're not completely anonymous. So if you like to trading or purchasing on the some markets, you should go in a way of direction and the rule of the AML directive. So EU adopts some rules to reduce anonymity because of the money laundering and tax evasions. But as Professor York said, it's very interesting because we are completely in the new world, in a new digital world. So, and we have a tax system which is actually for some another era. And for the tax matters, for example, cryptocurrencies right now, I think in the most states who taxing the crypto, some states are not, they're taxed as a capital gain. So in any tax system, I should know, first thing that I should know, who is the taxpayer. So if we are talking about the capital gain, so I earn the money, so my economic strength is the higher, so I'm the taxpayer. But as Professor said, maybe we could shift that in, for example, some other way of taxation, like a withholding tax or exit tax, or tax burden will be on somebody who actually, I don't know, buying something. So that's thing that we should start to think about. The new era should follow new tax system. So nothing is written in the stone. So we can start to build something better. And, but in any case, someone, if we tax cryptocurrencies, we should know who is the taxpayer. So that's in this point, anonymity will stop.
Yeah, and as an addition, I would like to say thank you, and for what it is about privacy and anonymity. That's a kind of respect. So I would say, if we want to have all this technology, and now it is in the fintech, most of the technology is used by banks, fintech, in-house clearing, and everything. But when we come to the customer service point and the point of address that we have people-to-people business and business-to-people, and we come to that conclusion, it must be a given and taken, because I could not expect to benefit of all these new technologies, which is driving me in a better life of style, I will say, because we have better medical, we have better transportation, we have better, like a smart city, I will say. If I'm not willing to give up a little bit of my privacy and anonymity as a given to the community. So, and in this case, everyone has to think on his own pace. Would he be participating in a new world, or is he overdriven by fear that something like George Orwell's nightmare happened? And if we want to create something that we can use this technology in a way that leads us to better situations, better government and everything, we need to allow the technology to balance our interest in privacy and anonymous, and on the other hand, the government in securing the freedom in the system.
Excellent.
I agree.
Absolutely agree. Just a moment. Absolutely agree with you, Professor, because technology and legislation should be compatible. And nothing is only on technology and nothing is only on the legislation. They should be really compatible. So right now we have a problem and tensions. I will not say problem, I will say tensions between GDPR and the blockchain. So we have two things, for example, two things which are different. So in the blockchain, the data are immutable. So if we are looking in the GDPR, some data could be erased forever. So in the GDPR, we have data collectors. So in the blockchain, we don't have intermediary. So so this is some tensions, but I always said, I'm not engineer, but I always said that technology could be modified that satisfied both sides. But as you said, this is for our benefit. This is something that's happening right now. So we cannot say that is not happening and everything will be as before. It's not. And except now in this pandemic, everything is accelerating these things. But when we put something in the law and we have some rules, then we have to start to think about technology and the opposite side. So, and the opposite, some technology should thinking about what's going on, for example, in the tax system or I don't know where. So in this situation, that should be compatible. And then we will have no problem and no tensions as is now. But I always think that technology should be modified whatever we like. That's not something, that is something that we could build. We can modify blockchain for the tax purposes. Why not?
I agree with you, Ksenia, that taxation or technology and legislation should be compatible, and we should try to resolve those tensions. However, I think the system of blockchain and open source development generally doesn't really allow technology to fit the legislation, because we can make a new system where GDPR is taken into account. We could code it and release it, but can we convince people to use it? And I think that is ultimately going to be a no, because if you create a new system with GDPR in mind, something that's GDPR compliant and that you can delete, you're taking away a lot of the benefits, not to mention the network effects, of the people who originally used the blockchains that weren't compliant. So I think convincing people to use a legislatively compliant new technology is quite difficult, considering we have good working technology with large network effects right now, such as Bitcoin.
Yes, I agree with you, Sachin, but actually we are talking about technology which should bring something new. So if there is not benefit, we have technology and digitalization right now. So if they not bring something new, of course, we will not put that administrative burden on the citizens, taxpayers, or the government. That will be nonsense. So will be something compliant with the GDPR. GDPR is, you should be compliant. So this is not something you can choose. So on the other side, this is not in the stone. Everything should be changed for the better, but we have to feel these benefits. Without benefits, this is all without any purpose.
The main problem in all of this discussion is always, and this is what you said, we are going to a technology age which is leaving us from the information society into the technology society driven by computer decisions. So the question in here is, how many right management and how many trust do we put into computer-driven systems? And once we finalize everything, our dreams and our, I would say, our understanding of the world as it is to now, are we able to take it back if we see that was the wrong decision? Or it is more and more that we, driven by business and the possibilities we have today, that we lead our decisions into a technology hand which is taking over our society in a way that we are feeling safe in a controlled way, but haven't got any influence further on?
So just have a couple of comments. I have a lot of comments, but it's I'm going to leave it out to the panel to discuss. But you know, there's technologies that are born free, right? Like 3D printing. I'll say drones also. That there's no really regulation around. It's just people use it and they create them. I guess drones are going to start to have regulations. But then there's like technologies that are considered captive, right? Captive technologies. And I think this type of technology, Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, become captive, and a lot of governments see it to be they're like guilty until proven innocent, right? And that's a problem. And we just need to somehow have them work together, create regulation, create policies that actually encourage innovation and don't hamper it, but also take in consideration the rights of the consumer, which is, you know, that's utopia, right? We all say, oh, I agree, Mark, but it's easier said than done. And I believe the technology is easy, but the agreements and the policies and all that are much harder to get through, especially from a global standpoint, which this technology is. But one point I want to make is, you know, a lot of the financial markets as we have now, the monetary system, were built off crashes and crises and all this stuff when it was been put together through all these different environments, right, throughout time. With this environment, what we're doing now, we're creating a new financial monetary environment, and it's being planned very well by a lot of very smart people to actually work for what we're talking about, for the people, to be more decentralized. It's just getting there. And it's a great place to be, all the panel, everybody on the phone. And I think the Government Blockchain Association is doing a good job of educating people and educating governments and partners and companies and everybody, essentially down to the educational university level, that this technology is of use, can be used for all inclusion in the financial markets. And I think it does start with education because we are creating a new financial environment, whether we know it or not. Or how about a unique way to exchange value? How about that? Okay, so what I want to do, I actually want to try to get any comments from the audience. I'm going to try to do this. I'm going to, I guess I can unmute all. Yep, and then see if anybody has any questions from the audience. Don't know if they do or not. Anybody can speak up. Going once. And let me know if you guys are having problems with unmuting. Hopefully not. If not, then...
I have a question.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
If you transfer your cryptocurrency coins from a wallet such as Coinbase onto a cold storage wallet like the Ledger, is it completely anonymous at that point as to where those coins are and who owns those coins?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Coinbase especially, lots of exchanges, but Coinbase especially hires outside, they contract with companies called chain analysis companies. And those companies take your KYC information, your address, social security, phone number, etc., and they combine it with the fact that they know what address you sent your coins to. So when you send coins to a ledger, you're sending it to an address, and the ledger controls that address. But Coinbase knows where they sent those coins, so they can label that address as owned by you, because they have your real world information and your digital information, and they combine that into an identity. And then say you send it from a ledger to a final destination, they can look at that spend and see, do we think this is a self-spend, just someone transferring money between their own accounts, or do we think this is someone sending it to, say, a black market or a different exchange or something else? So chain analysis looks at the string of transactions and uses the KYC information of exchanges to kind of de-anonymize a lot of that. So definitely if you send it straight from Coinbase to a ledger address, they know exactly where that Bitcoin is and who owns it. So it's not anonymous.
So what is the way around it? I mean, I'm fairly new to cryptocurrency. I've been buying coins, mainly Bitcoin and a couple of other altcoins on Coinbase. And then I've started studying, you know, all the different aspects of this new technology. And I'm learning that there are ways that you can have your coins be anonymous. So what would I do to do that before I send them to the Ledger X?
Sure.
So why do you want them to be anonymous?
Why? Well, because there seems to be a lot of uncertainty as to whether or not one day the government's going to step in and go, you can't have this, you can't have cryptocurrency, give it here. That's the general, you know, aspect that I'm hearing. I may be incorrect, that, you know, my hard-earned dollars, it's nothing illegal. I work very hard for my money, and I've taken a portion of that and I bought cryptocurrency. I don't want to lose it.
Yeah, I think that's a great concern.
In usual situation, that will be if you're afraid of the taxation.
Yep.
So for taxation,
well, I don't think this is a tax problem. So this goes actually back to the concern that Tom has goes back to something historically whereby the US government did basically make it very difficult or illegal for people to have holdings of gold some time ago. Now,
no, it doesn't matter, but I think I'm from government, so I think that I'm the last person who can say everything about that. But actually, yes,
I'm
my
more
question.
trying to answer Tom's question in terms of he's worried that he might have his Bitcoin taken off him, right? And I think due to the nature of Bitcoin, it's a very difficult thing for me personally. I think if I put my Bitcoin
it might
somewhere,
be difficult to confiscate, but it'll be quite easy to identify and tax
That's
if
true.
it's
That's
related
true.
to a to an exchange. So this is if you can see my screen,
I
this
just
is
want to
visual
say something.
identity.
If I say something
Sorry.
which reminds me about this question. This is about, for example, I have a money in the bank, and I get my interest because of this money. And people, of course, will not would like to pay the tax on interest. So I will put my money, for example, in Singapore. But for example, in the European Union, we have directive to automatic exchange information, and that was the first exchange information about the interest. Because why? Because interest on my money is actually my income. So I think that we should moving in the space when we are talking about taxation, where we will have the very simple tax law, which could be applicable on all cryptocurrencies. If, of course, the government decide to tax cryptocurrencies. If not, that's not a problem at all.
I think this problem is not is not what he is given only in taxation. I think the problem is more about that. I'm leaving my cryptocurrencies in an exchange. So, for example, Coinbase is only allowing you to transfer cryptocurrency away in a way that becomes 2 Bitcoins a day. So if you have 100 Bitcoins, you need a lot of time to transfer these Bitcoins. So when we're talking about peer-to-peer and the original sinister of a cryptocurrency, which was not meant to have tax savers, but creating an economy where the ownership of money is in my hands and not in a bank who can decide whether I can spend or whether I can't spend. This is a concern I can understand if I said, and to answer this question, if I send, I would never send I would never send from a third party a coin to another third party. So I will rather send my Coinbase derivatives to a wallet, and from that wallet to 100 other wallets, and jump around, and then I'm back in that space. So I think on the slide we see here from Session, he can really explain how this is from a technology point working, or from a philosophy.
Yes, Coinbase will be try to identify so as some other platforms. So that's not something new.
Yeah. If I could explain this situation. So this is how this illustration is how Coinbase assembles your identity. They match your blockchain data, as in the addresses and the amounts of say crypto you have, with your real world data that is they're legally required to collect. And then they know they can attach both pieces of data and de-anonymize you. So here's a graphic I put together about how this privacy works. So through KYC AML, exchanges and chain analysis companies de-anonymize you through chain analysis. And they use heuristics such as common input and other ones such as script type and change output heuristics to determine who owns what coins on the blockchain. So that leads to a known identity and lack of privacy. However, there are also lots of actors, companies or open source projects that attempt to break heuristics and hide transaction flows. And so this is how you reassert your anonymity and ultimately get back to a pseudonymous and public blockchain, which is what Bitcoin is from the beginning. So this is a continuous cycle with chain analysis companies and privacy-focused companies competing to make and break heuristics. One of the biggest heuristics, one of the biggest methods used for privacy is CoinJoin. So CoinJoin is like centralized mixing, where you mix your coins, except it's completely decentralized and no third party takes control of your coins. So you input your coins along with several other transactors, and then you all privately get out the same amounts that you put in.
Can you maximize your slide size?
Yes. Can you still see the slide in full view now?
Yes.
Okay, great.
That's
So
good.
This is an image of a CoinJoin transaction on the blockchain. These green inputs in 0, in 1, in 2, and 3 are the inputs that people put in, and those are all each broken up and then reassembled into outputs, these red blocks, so that no one input can be traced to a specific output. So the ownership of each coin has been broken. And in that way, a chain analysis company can't tell who owns which coin after that. So this is how, to Tom's question, this is how you would anonymize your Bitcoin. You use CoinJoin or Whirlpool. Whirlpool is a CoinJoin technique implemented by Samurai. So Samurai Wallet and then Wasabi Wallet implements a CoinJoin as well. So if you'd like to anonymize your Bitcoin, just download the Wasabi Wallet or the Whirlpool Samurai Wallet, and you'll be able to do this. And you can look online and see that the anonymity of your coins has been reestablished. So that's essentially how anonymity works. And this is something that is free open source software, so it's not really regulatable. Governments could attempt to ban the code itself, but it's very difficult to prevent any individual user from using this code because you can run it on your own without any corporation.
So download Whirlpool and basically send from Coinbase to Whirlpool. And then I could go from the Whirlpool to my Ledger X wallet wallet.
Yes, exactly. So I personally use Wasabi. I've done many CoinJoins. They're very safe. There's no real way of losing your funds during this CoinJoin process. And in the end, they will be anonymous. But there are a lot of, there are a couple ways to mess this up. So if you're going to try it, you should learn how to do it and not mess it up. For example, if you CoinJoin and then recombine 2 coins that you got out of a CoinJoin, you've essentially undone the CoinJoin for yourself because you've revealed the amounts that you own. So there are lots of best practices you should read up on before you start using CoinJoin.
Well, you're talking about CoinJoin and Whirlpool. Which of the two do you recommend?
So I personally use Wasabi Wallet, which uses CoinJoin, but Whirlpool is essentially a brand name of CoinJoin. CoinJoining is the process, and Whirlpool is one brand name that implements that process.
Which is easier to use for a novice?
So actually, Whirlpool is implemented by Samurai Wallet, which only operates on an Android phone, and I think you should stick with Wasabi for now. That's my personal opinion. A lot of people disagree. But if you download Wasabi, you can download it on a desktop computer and then run CoinJoin quite easily.
So the Wasabi wallet is part of CoinJoin.
Wasabi Wallet implements the protocol for CoinJoin. So it allows you to CoinJoin your coins.
All right, and you're saying don't make the mistake of let's say I've got Bitcoin and several others, and I put them all in CoinJoin through the Wasabi wallet. What did you say the mistake would be, to take them out together, or?
Yes, I can go into detail. I just I don't want to take up the whole panel on talking about Wasabi and CoinJoin, but essentially, first, Wasabi only uses Bitcoin, so you won't be able to CoinJoin your other cryptos. But I'm happy to explain it afterwards.
This is the best way to do, and I never will take a Ledger X or something like that, because you depend on several update processes from third parties which have a key root access, and we finally figured out in security checks that they leave on your Ledger a tracing cookie like that in a different way. So I do not believe in technology like Ledger.
So you do not believe in technology like Ledger?
Right. I will keep them in what Sachin was saying. I will leave them on an offline wallet like Wasabi. You can take it offline, and that's for good.
So just for anyone who's interested, I'll put my email in the chat. And if you'd like to learn more about how to do this and how to best store your Bitcoin and privatize your Bitcoin, I'm happy to explain more about that over email or over a Zoom call.
Yeah, we'll give I think the next session's how to launder money, right? That's what GBS teaching us. No, I'm totally,
No.
I'm totally joking. But this is a great discussion. But thanks for the questions from the audience. I'm going to move on to another question. We only got through like 4 questions, so and it's already, what time is it?
I think that we maybe much more should educate people to move on from anonymity, because when we are talking about AML directive, this is not only for against the tax evasion or money laundering, is actually to protect the consumers. So I would like that we share much more thoughts about that, because one of the point should be reducing anonymity.
So that's a great segue into another question. So I have a question for the panel, and Ksenia, you can start off. So how is government addressing privacy and anonymity in the cryptocurrency space? How are we addressing that? How's government addressing that? Oh. You're on mute.
I think you're muted.
There you go. Oh, she is muted. You're muted, Ksenia. What happened?
Mark, I think you can unmute her yourself.
Yeah, I did. Let's see. Just delayed.
I'm sorry. Do you hear me now?
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Something is going wrong with my computer. So as I said, we have in European Union, we have I think two directives which are two rules which are the regulation which are connected with privacy. So one of them is GDPR, and second is e-privacy. So privacy is very important, and reducing anonymity because of the reason, as I said before. So actually, we should apply this directive and GDPR, and I think that is the good way. So as I said, if technology should follow that, or if we make compatible that, we will protect the consumers also. So I personally would not like to be in some anonymity sphere. I don't see the reason for that. I don't see any reason. I would like to, and I have my privacy, and everyone should protect my privacy, but anonymity is something that I don't quite understand what is important in that. So I think that we should move in that way. So in that way, which we have legislation right now. So such as Coinbase, this is Lightbit or Sex or some else platforms that open the questions unlawful market. So I think that will be the next question. So we should trading in some secure market, not in some market which is, we don't know what will be the results of that. So maybe we will lose everything. So maybe we will have the problems, I don't know. So I think that we should move in the way of legislation that as a starting point that we have now, and build much more easier legislation, much more simple, much more applicable legislation. And in that way, the consumers, the traders, the buyers, the taxpayers, which will be much more protective than if you are in the sphere of anonymity. So I think that many countries right now working on some laws to protect it. So for privacy, they have a laws, but for, I don't know, cryptocurrencies, they right now we expect it in European Union till end of the year, some drafts of the definition of the cryptocurrency. So it will be very, very good step forward. And I think that we need to have some regulations. And we are talking about anonymity. What does it mean? So my personal opinion in anonymity, in an anonymous sphere, somebody will have some privilege that I will not have this privilege. So some information will be very, very privileged. So I think that we have to solve that situation and protect the people who are in the sphere of cryptocurrencies.
Yes, this is a good statement, and I agree with you. And to 99%, there's one thing we missed out when we come to GDPR, for example. You mentioned that. So actually, for example, in my country, in Germany, for example, it is impossible to reach the GDPR standards because when COVID-19 came, the government was going above the standards from GDPR. So we have to file a form when we go for a restaurant. The owner is keeping that in a box. So everyone passing the box by can take out my data there. So where's the GDPR and the consequence? I think at the moment we have a lot of rules which are good enough for serving us, but they haven't got be thought to the end of the road. And the computer is the end of the road, because if we do a mistake in definition and understanding of the rule, the computer is repeating the error 1,000 times a day. And that leads into a situation where we maybe miss out the point that we had done an overtaxation and non-taxation or whatever we are talking about. So this is, my fitness is the education in that, and see the topic from all sides and all perspectives and all point of views and bring it together. That is the most difficult part. But otherwise, we lead into a technology which is fighting us, not supporting us.
Yes, but because this is the reason that many government institutions, including tax administration, analyzing. So you will not find blockchain in any tax administration. I think that Estonia have some kind, but in the tax administration. So it's a lot of analyzing. It's a lot of piloting. So we don't want the errors. It will be the errors, of course. When we I always remembered bicycles and automobiles and TV. It's always resistance where it's something new. But right now, I think that with effort and if we are, we cannot making the law today just by the lawyer. So we have the people from the IT. So if we put some good solutions and some good pilotings, I think that we can move on with that. That errors will be not something that we cannot solve.
I actually, I agree with the sentiment, and I agree that some legislation and regulation is needed. However, for better or worse, I do think a lot of this regulation is impossible to properly implement because of the nature of open systems, where you can regulate, but any individual can achieve anonymity on the Bitcoin network, regardless of what the corporations or even the regulations say. So I don't think it's as captive, to use the term Mark brought up. I don't think some of these systems are captive enough to allow governments to regulate what kind of anonymity is possible. I think most people, the average person, will follow regulations and banking laws, but for those who want privacy and anonymity, and not just the criminals, will be able to get it no matter what, because some people want privacy for privacy's sake, and others want it to allow criminal activity, and others want it for political reasons. But I think that Bitcoin and similar systems are not going to allow governments to regulate anonymity away. And so it'll always exist for those who want it.
So I will say that in this way, as you say, Sachin, that anonymity belongs when the tax system exists from the starting of the Bible things. So if you want to avoid the taxes, you can do that. So it is your you have to apply the law. So it's your risk if you like to do that. But other side will do everything to minimize that. So if you are talking about, for example, a VAT tax fraud, it's happening today. The VAT tax gap is enormous, but that's not mean that we shouldn't fight against that and do anything. So, and I think that we should use technology for this. So technology could give us advantages to be much more faster, much more to build much more tools to fight against this fraud. And of course, possible that something will avoid it. It's always that it's not 100%. But to say that because of that we should stop and said, okay, we will not do anything, I'm not for that.
No, I think, but the problem with that statement is that I think when we look at technology, right? Technology is always an enabler, right? And then if you imagine it's an algorithm that you kind of implement, right? And then the biggest challenge with that is like I think that we have been discussing is the lack of education and awareness, and it's a very, very huge problem, right? Because when we talk about the regulations that need to be applied, the question is who understands those, right? Because we can talk about the general public, we can talk about the government, we can talk about the regulators, we can even talk about the experts. A lot of people don't even know what is happening, and then this is that is where there's a lot of cluelessness. And now the question is, if we want to rely on technology to take care of the regulatory aspects, the question is what are those regulations, right? Because you can take the example of India, right? India is one of the largest democracies. They are still very, very much undecided with respect to what they want to do with cryptocurrencies, right? So they banned it, and then the Supreme Court reverted that decision, and they're now still going through that again, the entire debate again. The question is, how do you first ensure that the right decision is made, the right regulations are noted down first, so that then the technology can implement it, right? Actually, technology cannot provide the answer. Technology can actually implement the answer. I think this is what we need to kind of understand.
I think
hello.
for my
hello.
yeah,
Yeah, but actually, like for Shiv, it's actually for Shiv, like because there's a lot of uncertainty in the United States too, right? Because Congress, they're also like on two sides of this, right? So there's a lot of uncertainty with cryptocurrency, not just being in India, but around the world, right?
Right.
So there is a lot of confusion around the world with cryptocurrency. What will be the regulations? So it's in India, be it the Congress, with the Congress, because they're also on two sides of this, right? In a dilemma, and there is nothing coming clear from the European Union. So world around, except China, because they have a different they have a different atmosphere, or they work on a different lines. But world around democracies, they have not come out with a clear vision on cryptocurrencies, be it bills, be it laws.
So,
so if I could say about the legislation, so Mr. who are talking right now is correct, as Mr. Agarwal also. So the international solution and maybe global solution is the best solution. So right now in European Union, we don't have some unique definition of the cryptocurrencies, and every country has some laws or don't have the laws about the cryptocurrencies, and that makes system very complex. When the system is very complex, people just go to non-compliance sphere because they will say this is too complex for me, so I don't know what to do. So we have to work in some simple and international solutions. It will be much easier for the businesses. And I accept a lot from this document about the cryptocurrencies definitions in the European Union till next of the year by European Commission. So I think it will be one step that will be much easier to work if we have the same definitions, all of us. So the complex legislation would be mess at all.
I want to say something in addition, and from a higher perspective. Since the 1969, we know we have offshore accounts and fiat money. We never managed to take down that thing. Sometimes we find some Panama Papers and we take down a ring, and 1,000 new rings exist today in a second. And we're talking about a cryptocurrency, which has a market cap of 4% of all the money supply.
Yeah.
And if we talk about that,
it
seems very interesting
4%.
that we have a discussion about that we're talking about money laundering in cryptocurrency when we didn't even to manage the money laundering in fiat all the times over 30 or 40 years of things. Is it the way that our society stuck on the existence of offshore accounts, or is it necessary in a society that not everyone is fine with the system? Is it a collaboration of a wealthy community?
Yeah.
So
I remember,
as I understood you correctly. So you would like to say that we have some problem with the fiat currencies on the offshore? Yes, of course we have. But what we are doing about that? So we exchange the information even in some countries which are, for example, tax havens. So the things are moving on. So, but if we are not doing anything, what is your suggestion?
I think in my suggestion, it is the way you mentioned before. You are on the right, I think you're in the right way. If we make it clearer to the people and we have easier tax laws, and it is not that unfair in a situation that people won't accept. But think about the Romans were introducing the first taxes. So people always try to avoid them because there's always a group that's not fine with them. But at a holistic point of view, people know also that we need taxes because we have to provide the community with money. So everyone is running for the government and say we need some money for our behaves, right? So, and this is in my opinion, the key point to bring the people into an understanding. That's what Sachin was saying, that was Akwal was saying, for example, in India. If I do understand what I'm paying for, and I have a clearness about where the government is used my money for, yeah, and I elected the government for using the money in my interest because that's why I elected the party. And I see that the same clearance they expect from me, the same, I would say the same privacy, open up my privacy or anonymity I can see in the government. I still believe that a lot of people would pay taxes. But at the moment,
yes, I agree fully with you. I think that prevention versus repression. So if we prevent some things, and two things are very important. One thing is in transparency, where my money is going, and another thing is trust between, for example, government and the citizens. And this trust, I think that we can build much more based on digitalization, on IT system. So the human errors, or if you would like to say corruption or something like that, it's easier without IT. So I think that transparency and trust, which you emphasize, is much, much more important than anything we are talking about today.
Yeah.
So I have so everybody, the whole panel, thank you for your comments. I have questions from the audience. So if we're ready for questions from the audience, I'm going to start with Tom K. Hopefully you didn't forget your question. You still there, Tom? Let's see.
Okay, I'm sorry. Did you hear me?
Yeah, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, well, I had the one question, and Sachin, is that correct?
Sachin, yeah.
Sachin, you said you would be willing to help me, and I've got your email as what you put in the chat or the messages. So I would like to do that and follow up and just getting more educated so I don't lose my coin. Like I said, I'm not a criminal. I'm not trying to wash money. I've set a little bit aside, and I want to continue, and I want to learn the correct way to store it without, worrying about one day the government saying, oh, this is all illegal because we have our own one world currency crypto now, and this is what you got to use, and the hell with everything else. That's my belief. So that's I believe we're headed that way. Unfortunately, it's a bad thing, but I want to protect what's mine and what I've worked hard for. So I would like to follow up with you if that's okay. And that's really not a question. It's just a statement. And if you're still willing to do that, I'll get in touch with you at your email.
Absolutely. I think you raised a good point that privacy and even anonymity are not things that only criminals desire. So a lot of people want anonymity to be able to express valid political opinions or protect what's theirs, or just for the sake of privacy itself. So I think that there's a lot of value there in terms of not taking away the ability for good people to have privacy. Yeah, so thanks.
Well,
I'm definitely willing to help anyone.
I appreciate it very much. Like I said, I work hard. I work 15, 16 hours. I appreciate it. I don't hear it enough, but basically I work 15, 16 hours a day. So what money I earn, it's definitely earned. And I'm choosing to invest it in precious metals and crypto because I think they're both going to go through the roof as all the fiat currencies fall.
Yeah. One of the keys, like you're doing right now, Tom, is that educate yourself. Reach out to anybody that's part of the GBA and Sachin especially.
Will this be an ongoing thing that is available now that I'm signed up with it?
We have all types of webinars. I'll recommend you take some of the educational courses too, just to get yourself up in speed to it and the technology and understand a little bit more.
Sounds great.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Tom. The next person is Jacques. Jacques has a comment.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to comment on privacy. In my belief, I believe privacy is important for any digital currency, and because first of all, privacy is going to help the currency becomes attractive, and then becomes very dominant among all the digital currencies in the world. But we need to do something in order for it to be successful. We need to strike a balance. And the balance is that, first of all, there must be a balance between a person's civil rights to a degree of privacy in transactions, and then a nation's right to conduct law enforcement and national defense and so forth. That way we make sure that the currency isn't used for money laundering or human trafficking or illicit drugs. So we have to think about that balance. And that's the only comment. That's what I wanted to say.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I think from that point, what you said, it's a great thing in that. Another point I will throw in the round is the more KYC and AML we do, the more we prevent fighting poverty. Because the most important thing about cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin is that I own a piece of Bitcoin and it is growing because the participations have a demand. And I can't access this piece of cryptocurrency because I can't fulfill the rules of KYC because I'm living in a developing country. So how we actually would survive this problem in case of privacy and anonymity. Then that's the reason why Bitcoin is here.
Yeah, that's a great point. And let's go. I'm going to go into a big question that's happening now in the news. But one idea too, and this is something, I understand all the regulations, all the laws that are happening around this space now. But if you really understand what's going on with even within the say the Bitcoin blockchain space and a lot of that like Ethereum and all these other networks, in and of themselves, they have their own monetary system. You build within the protocol, you have a way, essentially the protocol acts like a central bank. It controls the money, it controls the flow. Everybody follows the rules within this system. And I would see, and I'm going to get into the big question next, how governments and central banks can use this to control the flow of money, the input and information, or more data, or more currency and money into the financial system, and also withholding it if they wanted to. So there's a way that this technology can be abused, and we see that it can happen from a government standpoint, or it can happen from a individual person that wants to launder money. And then you have the people that are just want to go about their day. They want to buy a cup of coffee with the cryptocurrency. And so you have all these different forces trying to work together. And like I said, I think we're in the space right now to where everybody to create this new financial environment that's all inclusive. So the big question is central bank digital currencies, right? That's what's happening now. The Federal Reserve is getting into it. The Bank of England is doing some work on it. The Australian central bank's doing stuff. So all these central banks are looking at creating a digital currency. So I have a question here from a central bank digital currency. Geez, where is it at? Oh, here it is. So will privacy and anonymity still be a concern with central bank digital currencies? We still have that problem when the central banks, when they get to it, it's not if they're going to get to it, but when they get to creating a digital currency.
My
I think
opinion.
the way, I think the way if you look at the way some of these central bank digital currencies are designed, definitely there's a huge problem with that. We probably don't have enough knowledge, I think, about how a number of countries are approaching the problem and whether there is the level of transparency in the central bank digital currency development as there is in the development of a cryptocurrency. That I think in many cases there won't be. Really depends how they allow their network to operate. Do they allow third parties to confirm transactions, or do they operate their own private node network where the way that transactions are confirmed are controlled there? I think there's many open questions in that regard. And if you look at some pertinent examples, there are certainly some political systems that are completely against that privacy and anonymity. So I think there's some huge problems there.
I had a panel discussion a couple of months ago about this topic. This central bank digital coin makes sense, or whatever it is in. And I believe we have come to an end in money. The situation we are in now is, in my opinion, that we hide the largest economy crisis of the world behind a virus. So of course there is a virus. We always have viruses, but we have an economy crisis because we didn't learn from the mistakes in 2008. So, and this is, in my opinion, the reason why central banks become a state of obsolete in the future. Jacine was saying we have to reorganize our way we look at taxes, and we have to reorganize the way we collect taxes, and we come into the space. So we can't think in old role models. If we are not able to shape the society and the economy and the view of point of economy, income streams, outcome streams, and taxation in a whole new way, because now we have a digital traceable system, we will lead into a situation that the next bubble is not only an economy crisis, it's an overblown digital system by printing more and more digital coins in the same way we have done, and then we double and triple all the problems that leads into crisis every second year. And if we do not come to the conclusion that we get the effort of the benefits, and that's what most of the regulators don't see at the moment. An inflationary, overblown system, you can only fight with deflationary. The only system at the moment we have is Bitcoin as a deflationary system. Every other cryptocurrency is inflationary. every token is inflationary. And so our thoughts is only a digital copy of the old world with all the mistakes in that. So, and the central bank is nothing more than it was incepted to keep the control out of the family banks. So now we have the control of the supply chain in fiat, but in a digital way, there is no necessary because the computer is controlling the supply and the stock flow. And from that, we have to learn how we can prevent coming in a situation like that. Don't follow our own rules.
Great point.
I think that's a great point. I also wanted to mention when you have a centralized entity controlling your currency, whether that's a central bank or a corporation, they can guarantee deflation or lack of inflation. They can guarantee privacy and anonymity, but you have no guarantee that in the future they won't reverse those policies. So I think that's another reason why a central bank digital currency won't be much of an improvement, is because even if they look at Bitcoin and say we need a hard cap on supply, which I don't think they do, as soon as a recession began, the central bank would reverse that policy unilaterally and re-implement their previous fiat policies. So I think the problem is, one, with inflation and anonymity, but also with centralized control, because any policy in a centralized system is subject to arbitrary reversal. So it's hard to trust in a system if you don't know what the policy will be. For example, right now, like as we speak, Jerome Powell is changing the Fed's monetary policy in an unpredictable way. And he's giving a speech right now on how he's going to pursue more inflation. So I think you see that whatever the Fed says last week, they could easily reverse this week.
I agree. And I think if you look at some of the challenges we have in the traditional markets, they're fed by a lot of the policies of the central banks. When we look at Bitcoin, it is a cryptocurrency where there is, at the moment, complete certainty as to how it's going to operate. And to echo what Shiv's just said, that is absolutely the issue with these, and your professor has said, the issue with the central bank digital currencies is there is still central control of them. It's a digital version of exactly the same thing. Now, what does that mean for the future of Bitcoin and others? Look, I personally think it's very positive for the price of Bitcoin, if you're into that, because it just operates in a very different way. The other thing I'd probably mention is governments who have acknowledged, and tried for many, many years to kill off Bitcoin, and everyone's tried to kill it for 10 years now, and nobody's been able to kill it. People have been saying it's gone for 10 years. You look at Bitcoin obituaries, I don't know how many it's up to now, but it's a huge number. It's not going away. So it's going to be interesting to see how the digital currencies play with Bitcoin in the future.
Well, that's a good.
I have a question. If we look at Japan, in Japan, Bitcoin is currency, a legal currency, the only country in the world, right? Does it change Japan into a state of terrorism? Does Japan run out of tax?
No, it doesn't. Like I think it does the very opposite in many respects. So I think, to Mark's point as well, in terms of what GBA is trying to do in terms of educating people, there's education required for lawmakers as well here, in my opinion. There's people. There's obviously lots of people in various public service departments around the world who are trying to educate the lawmakers, educate their ministers and their representatives. But at the end of the day, the people who are voting on legislation need to understand what they're dealing with. And there's probably still a fair bit of education to go, I think.
Yep.
If we are talking about the cryptocurrencies and as a payment, so you can do that in many countries. So for example, in my countries, you can buy some goods or pay some services and exist ATMs with Bitcoins. So I don't expect that will stop. That will be every day much more, because we are moving to the new economy. So it would be nice to look at in Japan how Japan regulated what you said, Professor Molt, because I think that regulation is not small in Japan about this part. But
no, they didn't.
I agree with you.
Yeah, they haven't.
I agree with you that cryptocurrencies are not, as you said correctly, that if we moving in the field of cryptocurrencies, everyone will be money launderer. That's not possible. So as in taxation, we will say, if somebody does not understand the law, he is a criminal. He's not. But we should have some situation that is unstoppable. That will be going more and more. So it's depend of us. You said education to the governments, absolutely, but education from the other side to the other people, not to government. Government, for example, educate themselves, so they follow, they piloting, they analyzing, they are not sleeping in all the time. So, but we have the persons, the citizens, we are the service. Somebody said that technology should serve the citizens, absolutely. So we, as a tax administration, we have the two parallel goals, timely collecting the taxes, but the parallel goal is to be the services to the citizens. So, so we have educate all of us. I don't mean government. The education is need for the people. So you can have many persons today, especially in this COVID time, that would like to invest, but they don't know what cryptocurrencies are. So this is the mutual education. So if we can talk, I don't know, for the hours about the taxation, and I'm sure that maybe some people will not understand what I'm talking about. So this is the same if you are talking about the cryptocurrency, maybe some things I will not understand. So we need to educate the people as the government, as the IT sector about the taxation. So let's connect everything. So education is really necessary. That's the good point.
Exactly. So this goes into the next question, right? So how will digital currencies, the central bank digital currencies, how do you think that's going to impact the adoption of cryptocurrencies and privacy coins?
In a very easy way. In the moment, you do a regulation on people which are in a digital way with their money. So the CBDC coin and something like this is like digital money, and people will adopt digital money and everything. And something is going wrong with the system. A lot of people will turn over to Bitcoin. This is the best advertisement for Bitcoin I have ever seen. That has much impact. Think about Libra. Libra was the best advertisement for Bitcoin.
And I also think, I think, like Professor said, a CBDC doesn't solve any of the same problems that Bitcoin solves. A CBDC might be faster than cash or wire transfers, but it won't solve the problems that Bitcoin solves, which is censorship and inflation and arbitrary control. So I think a CBDC it will amount to Venmo in my mind, where it's faster, it's all digital, and you can have some convenience, but Venmo doesn't fix a problem because you still need a bank account. So it's not going to fix any inclusivity problems that Bitcoin offers to solve.
As the CBDC, this is not the cryptocurrencies, and I agree with professors that we should start to think to avoid the problems from the past. It doesn't matter is the fiat currency or CBDC. Of course, CBDC has some advantages, but if we repeat the economic problem from before, that will be that will be the over of everything. I think so. So, but I think that with CBDC we are going forward, because I saw and I followed that during the crisis. No one central banks stopped the project, so they are working on that. So, but they should be very careful to not repeat the problems and the errors from before in the whole economy.
Yes, and that's what I said before, that it's, you know, the previous economies and financial markets would create all crises and you know, crashes and all this, and now we have the great opportunity, all of us globally have the opportunity to create this new system, and it's not like in what happened before. Now it's being planned very carefully, which is great. We're all talking about this. So you can see some benefits from the bigger picture, the implementation of the central bank digital currencies. Like Sachin said, they're not going to solve a lot of the problems, but they're going to have the same problems. But I think with the central banks involved, maybe we'll, if everything in a utopian world, that we work together to solve some of the issues that we have with the cryptocurrencies. Maybe the central banks can help us solve these issues, because they're going to experience the same thing, and they'll reach out to the community to help them implement this. But it'll be interesting to see, and we actually should follow it. So there's one thing, I don't know how much time we have. We have about less than 10 minutes, 8 minutes left in this webinar, which has been great. So there's some issues that the cryptocurrencies actually have in trying to solve, and which traditional fiat currency actually solves right now, is the fungibility, right? Scalability, stability, and acceptability. So these are a lot of the things that the current fiat currency has that could scale, it's accepted worldwide. You think we will reach that point with Bitcoin, with the cryptocurrencies? Because I know the digital currencies are going to start coming up and trying to solve these right away. Again, they're going to have the same issues that we have. But how do you think as we move forward in the next, we'll say next 5-10 years, we're going to solve these issues, of these characteristics of money, right? Which is uniformity, finality, stability, and acceptability.
From a technology point of view, Bitcoin solves the problem with the Lightning Network, which is able to do up to 1 million transactions a second. For example, Visa and MasterCard has at the moment 30,000 transactions a second. So, and we should not mix up the usage of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is mentioned as a cash replace in a digital form. For every other thing you want to do in a fungible way, there is a tokenomics. And the tokenomics has fantastic projects, which is not based on the consensus. For example, I'm talking about enterprise solutions like Hyperledger, which has nothing to exchange. It's a right management system, which is best usage for governments, best usage for economy itself and enterprise. So the enterprise and the government comes away from the token exchange discussion that something must be an exchange of value when we have a right management, which is secured by the consents without having a token. So I think Hyperledger was doing a great work to prove that this is working since 2015. So when it comes to fungibility in Bitcoin, that is not necessary, because think about Bitcoin. A lot of people say it's the digital money of the internet. So and if we go from that perspective, we haven't got any flaws in that. But if you want to have everyone and everything in Bitcoin and have a replaced Bitcoin or digital currency or whatever, which fulfill all of these necessaries, we are out of control. And if we are out of control, we lose the overview. And if we lose the overview, we do not know, we do not have an imagination what we do and what we lead into. And I think as a big Bitcoin enthusiast and maximalist, you know, I'm in there from the beginning. I think there is a regulation in the world necessary to keep the track on Bitcoin, and not to regulate Bitcoin to keep a track on the real world. And if we go for that, I think we have an economy which is much brighter than now.
Awesome. Any other comments? No? Okay.
Look, I think, yeah, but Bitcoin is definitely something that I don't see it replacing cash as such, or I see it as the cornerstone of a new technology that's emerging. It's just one example of blockchain distributed ledger technology that can be implemented. It's a really good example of it. And there's lots of other examples of it emerging. I think what's going to be really amazingly interesting is once these different blockchain technologies start to interact together and people can live their lives, they open up an app and do business on one blockchain and then it debits some Bitcoin or something, and then go to their health insurance app and it does another thing. We're a long way from that, but I think the foundations and the groundwork of infrastructure is being laid at the moment for a very, very exciting world where blockchain plays a massive part.
I agree, totally agree. Any other comments? I'm going to ask you guys for something before we head off. It's almost 11 o'clock. I don't know what time. It's probably 2 o'clock in the morning there where you're at, David.
That's right.
It's still late.
Hey, David.
So I'll have a quick vodka and then get to bed after this.
Quick vodka. That's good. Sounds good. You get sleep really well. So this has been a great, geez, we've been talking for about 2 hours now on this stuff. I could talk for a long time, and you guys did great. I think the interaction and the questions from the audience were awesome. Very good. So I got a couple of closing questions for the panel. So, geez, a word of advice. Say you have your grandkids that are going to be here in 20 years, 13 years, and you guys were part of this whole pandemic, right? You're going to sit around the campfire and say, "Oh, I remember when GBA had a conference about privacy and anonymity." So the world that you're going to be in. What do you see in the future? What's the new financial environment? You guys have a comment or one little statement?
Yep. Bitcoin is your new savings account.
Bitcoin's your new savings account. Good. Anybody else? Professor?
I would say, if you have seen the chaos from COVID-19 and the information flow, and we couldn't trust in the information we get because even the government was talking 1 week that way and another week that way, and all the virologists and everyone in there couldn't finally feature a point which we handle all over the difficulties and different countries. It needs something we can trust in, which is not I would say, controlled by interests.
Awesome. Ksenia or Sachin?
Yes, I think that this pandemic learned us a lot every day. So we should accept that everything around us is changing and is accelerating. And I believe in new economy completely. So before the pandemic, we are going to cashless society. And I believe that we will have, as you are if we are talking 10 or 20 years ahead, that we will have completely new financial system, and CBDC and digital money will play a really important role in that. So I believe that we will choose the best way for the benefits of the people in this new economy.
Awesome. How are you, Sachin?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that. I think COVID has really accelerated a lot of the trends that are going to show out in the next decade or two. I think if you look at just inflation, COVID forced governments to print incredibly fast. So I think that's going to teach people about what inflation is and how it actually hurts them. And that's going to push them not towards digital currency, but towards hard assets. And whether that's gold or Bitcoin, I'm not sure, but I don't think people are looking desperately for faster payments. I think they're looking for a better store of value. So.
Awesome. Excellent. I'm just going to be yelling at my grandkids. I'm not going to tell them anything. I'm telling them to get off the furniture, put the games away, and come eat. That's what I'm going to say. No, I think it's all good. The future's very bright for everybody that's on the call and part of this field. I think it's just exciting times for everybody. Like I said, when I opened it up, it's exciting, it's scary, and it's just, we'll see what happens in the future. But for everybody on the panel, everybody on the phone, thank you very much. I think you guys did a great job. And I appreciate all your input, and I hope we can do this again. The recording is good. It's being recorded, or it is recorded, and it will be placed on, I believe it's going to be on the YouTube channel for GBA. So everybody, I'm going to eat breakfast. I don't know what anybody else is going to do. You guys probably go to sleep, have your vodka. I need to get something to eat. Okay. Everybody, you guys have a good day. Thank you all very much. Really, really do appreciate it. Thank you.